Why can't a nose be 12 inches long? Well, because then it'd be a foot. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started on installing Windows XP to a virtual machine. So in order to do that on your desktop, you should have something that says Oracle VM VirtualBox. You're going to double click on that. Then we're going to click on New. Then we're going to type in Windows XP, and it should pop up Windows XP 32-bit right down there, but if it does not, make sure that you make it do that. And then after the name right here, name it like your last name right here. So I'm going to call mine Windows XP Reichelt, but you'll want to call yours Windows XP and then your last name. I'm going to hit next. The amount of RAM that we're going to give this is 2048. It's important that it is exactly this number. If it's one greater or one less than, you're going to have some issues during the installation. So 2048 for the amount of RAM. We hit next. We hit create. We hit next. All these defaults are going to be right. We hit create. Okay, and now we have Windows XP, and then it should be your name. I'm going to double click on this virtual machine right here. And it's going to ask me to select the startup disk. I'm going to click on this little folder with the up arrow right there. And I need to go to this PC, scroll down, and you should see a share drive. So we're going to go to the share drive. You want to go to main west, not main south, go to main west. Go to students, go to AAT, find cybersecurity in this list. Double click on that. And then we want to find Windows XP Professional, and we hit open and then start. You're going to notice right up here it'll say you have the auto capture keyboard option turned on. We click do not show this message again, and then the same thing for this one. Do not show this message again. While this starts up, let me describe to you what a virtual machine is. So a virtual machine is a computer within a computer. So when we went through this startup here and we hit new, that was basically like creating a new machine. A new machine. Once you get to this point right here, we're just going to hit enter. And then we want to use the NTFS, so the default is correct, and hit enter again. All right, so, and then it pops up here, and we had to select that Windows XP Professional.iso. So an ISO image is a virtual CD or DVD. So when we booted up this virtual machine, the first thing that it asks us to is, well, on the new virtual hard drive that we created, the hard drive is blank. So then we have to install an operating system to this computer for it to be able to get working. And so it asks us, hey, where are the installation files for the operating system? And they're on this virtual disk. It's a virtual DVD. So that's when we selected, that's when we went to the share drive and we pulled up we found that XP Professional ISO file. So an ISO file is just basically a virtual CD. And you can actually use a program like this, like CD Burner, to take an ISO file and actually burn it to a physical piece of like a physical DVD or physical CD, or you can use it to burn to like a flash drive or something along those lines. But all of the little different files that make up the CD are all kind of comprised in this. When it says press any key to boot from CD, we don't want to touch anything, okay? You just want to let it go. If you do touch a key during that point right there, the installation process is going to reset itself, and you're going to have to restart the virtual machine, and it's actually going to be kind of a mess. You're going to have to delete this virtual machine and create a whole new virtual machine. So while the computer is booting up, while it's installing, it's really important that you do not touch your keyboard. If you're touching your keyboard and you're surfing the internet and you accidentally hit a key during that one reboot process, it's going to screw up the entire installation process. So unfortunately, you just have to kind of keep your hands off the keyboard and wait for this to install. Now, why are we using Windows XP? Why aren't we using like Windows 7 or Windows 10? Those ISO files are on the share drive, so you have access to Windows 7 and Windows 10, and you can create virtual machines for those. But we're going to be using Windows XP for two reasons. Number one, it's really easy to hack into, and that's kind of going to be the point of this class. You're going to see how vulnerable Windows XP is and how easy it is to get into. Windows 7 is relatively easy to get into, but it's not as easy. And Windows 10, if it's fully updated, is pretty much impossible at this point to get into. Now, exploits will be coming along the way, but they aren't out yet. So go ahead and type in your name. I'm just going to go ahead and type in my name here. Hit next. The computer name. Everyone in here has to have a different computer name, or else we're going to all have issues. So it's really important that your computer name is type in your last name and then underscore computer1. And make sure that no one in this class has the same last name as you. If we have more than one computer name that has the same computer name, there's going to be all kinds of network conflicts and the internet isn't going to work for you. So make sure that this name right here is completely unique to you. Go ahead and give an administrative password that you can remember. So and give it something that is very short, because in a future lab we're going to actually be cracking this password. So I'm going to make mine like ABC123. Okay, ABC123. Make yours something short, easy to remember, not complex, because the more complex it is, the longer it's going to take to crack, and that's going to be a lab cracking the password, so you don't want to just be waiting and sitting forever. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit next. Change the time zone to Central Time. Hit next. Okay, so yes, so Windows XP is going to be incredibly easy to hack. The second reason we are installing Windows XP is because it's actually relatively quick. These computers, obviously they're running the main operating system back here. This Windows 10 operating system is being run, but now this computer is also being asked to run a virtual operating system, a virtual computer as well, which can be taxing on the computer. And in fact, in future labs, we're going to have multiple virtual machines running at the same time, which can be very taxing. So Windows XP is a relatively light operating system. It doesn't need much to run, and so it should run fairly well for us in this environment. I've tried to run Windows 7 and that runs okay. Windows 10 just kind of takes forever, and it crashes a lot on these virtual machines on these computers. In order to run Windows 10 on a virtual machine successfully, you really have to have a computer that's full of RAM, like top specs, top of the line, and we just don't have that in here. So you'll notice this setup right here, it went from like 32 minutes down to 10 minutes really quickly. I wouldn't worry too much about this setup time right here. Back in the 90s, it took about a half an hour to install Windows XP to a virtual machine, but it should only take us 10 minutes or so. I haven't paused the virtual machine yet, and we're still counting down pretty quick. At this point, I actually am going to pause the video because there's no need for you to watch this countdown, but as soon as I have to click on something, I'll go ahead and resume it. Okay, so it's rebooting again for the second time, and there's this press any key to boot from CD. Again, if you hit any key on your keyboard while it says press any key to boot from the CD, then unfortunately you will have to redo the entire installation process. You're going to have to delete this virtual machine and restart. So please, during this installation process, do not touch the keyboard unless, absolutely necessary. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Click OK again, and it's going to boot Windows XP here. Unfortunately, if you are doing something else and you hit a key during that time, bad things are going to happen. So now Windows XP is going to boot up for the first time. If you've never used Windows XP before, you're not going to get this every time you boot up. This is just like the basic setup. We do not want to turn on automatic updates for this computer. We want to leave it nice and vulnerable so that we will be able to break into it in the future. I'm going to hit next. This should detect some type of network. By the way, you might be thinking Windows XP, that's completely out of date. There are lots and lots, millions and millions of computers that are still running on Windows XP, and they are not updated, so they are completely vulnerable. Yes, this computer is on a local network, so I'll hit next. No, we do not want to register with Microsoft. I'll hit next. Go ahead and type in your name. I'll type in my name. Obviously, you type in your own name. Next, and then finish. Now Windows XP will boot up for the first time. In the future, it should boot up a little bit quicker. Now that we have this booted up, we're going to come over here to this Windows security alerts, and it's going to give you a message down here. That's okay, we don't want to take the tour. I'm going to double click on this Windows security alerts right here. We want to turn off the automatic updates. So in order to do that, I click on automatic updates, and then I click on turn off updates right there, hit apply, and okay. So we want to have automatic updates off and a virus protection off. And while we're here, let's go ahead and turn that firewall off as well. So I'm going to go ahead and hit okay. So this computer now, firewall is off, automatic updates are off, and virus protection is off. This thing is pretty vulnerable, and that's going to make our job a little bit easier in the future. Now that we have done this, we're going to go ahead and shut down our virtual machine. So I hit start, turn off computer, and then hit turn off. This is going to shut down the virtual machine. And once we're not quite done yet, so we've installed, we created this virtual computer. We installed Windows XP, the operating system, to the virtual computer, which is super vulnerable that we will be able to see how to hack into. And then now the last step is we need to create what's called a snapshot. I'm going to come up here to this 3 thing right there. I click on snapshots, and then I click on take, and we're going to call this right after install, and then click OK. So what this will do is, as we mess up this computer and we really destroy it and do all kinds of bad things to it, we can go back to this state. We can go back in time to right before you installed it. So we have this. You're always going to have this restore button right here. So we come in here, we go to snapshots. You can click on a snapshot and you hit the restore button, and it'll automatically go back in time to this state when you know your computer is healthy and there's no malware on it or anything bad. If you forget to take this snapshot right here, in the future when it gets infected with malware and viruses and all kinds of bad things, you're just going to unfortunately have to reinstall, create a completely new virtual machine and reinstall it, because it will be toast at that point. So it's really important that you create this snapshot and you know how to restore that snapshot to go back in time to a nice, clean, good, clean install. So, okay, hopefully you understand all this. Let me know if you have any questions.